Robert Scheinfeld here, and welcome to the second in what I'm calling the myth-busting series of videos. In this video, I want to focus on the law of attraction. Now man, at this particular time when this video is being recorded, the law of attraction as a technique to get everything you want is just sizzling. Because of the success of the DVD and the book The Secret, and all of the ripples that rippled out from that monster moving through the universe, so to speak, everyone's just on fire about this is the magic bullet to help you change, fix, or improve, or get anything that you want in your life. So let's take a close look at the law of attraction. As is the case when we talk about the truth, with capital T's, versus illusions and stories and non-truth, there are many layers to discuss from and about. So at the first layer, if you look very closely at the law of attraction and everybody who applies it to try and get what they want, change, fix, or improve whatever it is that they want in their life, here's what you see. It works sometimes, but not other times, and it works for some people, but not other people. If you actually take the time to measure, which I have done, all of the wants, if you will, that people try to pump through the law of attraction, and then you measure how many of those wants they actually got within a reasonable time frame, up to a year, I guess I might say, unless it happens to be a really long-term goal. What you find out is a very small percentage of the things that we try to pump through the law of attraction do we actually get. But what happens is, all of the practitioners, we want to believe that there's a magic bullet. We want to believe that there's a magical technique that we can just use and get everything that we want. And so what we end up doing is we selectively delete out of our awareness how many times it fails, and we focus on the few times that it succeeded, and then we say, oh great, it works, except it doesn't work the way it's explained. It is called the law of attraction, and if it's a law, it should work every time. Now, in general, there are many definitions, but the definition of law of attraction that resonated with me most and seemed to be the most simple and elegant way to explain it is, whatever you focus on with your most dominant thoughts will manifest in your life. And sometimes there's a wrinkle that if you focus on it in your dominant thoughts and you add a bunch of emotional excitement and energy, that can speed it up or lock it in more. But it's pretty much you get what you expect. You attract what you focus on most. But here's something interesting to look at as the next layer to what I just said. If that's the case, then everything that you focus your dominant thoughts on in the way that the law of attraction techniques are explained ought to manifest, which means that whenever you're really afraid that something bad's going to happen and it's on your dominant thoughts, the bad thing ought to happen. And every time you focus on the good thing that you want using the techniques, because that's what's on your dominant thoughts, then the good things ought to come. But here's what happens if you really look closely. The bad things don't always happen, even though our dominant thoughts are focused on them for long periods of time, sometimes as we perceive it, against our will. And as I mentioned, all the good things do not come. And here's another thing to look at. If the real power source is our thoughts, our dominant thoughts, then answer this one for me. Everybody, including you, has had an experience where you didn't focus on something, your thoughts weren't focused on it, you did not intend it, you did not consciously think about it, you maybe did not even consciously want it, it never even occurred to you. But it pops into your life anyway. An unexpected goodie, bonus, wonderful thing, whatever you want to call it. So if the law is whatever's in your most dominant thoughts manifests in your life, how do you explain something really awesome that manifests that wasn't in your thoughts? So if you look at all of this objectively, sizzle aside, romantic thinking aside, I really want this to be true aside, what you have to acknowledge is there is some other force that is modifying what's going on, that's controlling what's going on, that's determining which of what appears to be your thoughts, be they about things you're worried about or things you really want, which ones show up and which ones don't, And there's got to be some other force that is creating what's really happening in your life, such that something that you never focused your thoughts upon happens. I'll give you a great example of this, a gigantic one, and that's the Harry Potter series. The author of the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling, had no dominant thoughts about a series of books that would rocket around the world the way that they did and become what may be the best-selling book series of all time. I don't know if that's accurate, but if it isn't, then it's close. And a series of best-selling movies. Never occurred to her, was never on her mind. Her conscious intention was to make enough money to be able to support her and her daughter and to be able to continue writing what she had a passion for. So how do you explain the source of this amazing success in creation called Harry Potter when it was not in her dominant thoughts? Again, there's got to be some other creative force that is really responsible for what's going on. And along my journey through a very interesting story that you can discover on my website, there should be links to it beneath here. And if not, go to robertscheinfeld.com, robertscheinfeld.com. And you can find out a story, because along the lines of struggling with all of this, I discovered and was able to map out the terrain, so to speak, of this true creative process, as I call it, with capital T for true, capital C for creative, capital P for process, that's really determining what happens to us every day. Not our dominant thoughts, but another creative process. And how to be able to tap into that creative process to get what you really want, which very often is radically different than what you think you want, which is a whole other story. So I invite you, and there are other things that I could say here about the law of attraction that would take more detail than we have, more time than we have here in this particular video. But if you visit my website, click on a link that you may see beneath this video, or go to the website that I just explained, you'll be able to get much more detail on the creative process that I just mentioned and on why the law of attraction is a myth, why it does not work that way, really, why it fails more often than it works, and how to tap into the true creative process to be able to transform your life in radical ways.